What is up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another live stream. My name's Lewis, also known as MrCameraJunkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. Episode number 72. 72 consecutive weeks of the live stream, and we're gonna keep it rolling. As if it's your first time here, I would like for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Say hello to the rest of the Camera Junkie crew so that you can get the Camera Junkie welcome. And with that being said, thank you as always for taking the time and spending it here with me. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're taking it to hang out with the Camera Junkie crew, talk some cameras, specs, updates, and any questions that you might have. Please put a Q in front of them, a Q colon, so that I can find them easier in search, so that I can help you out with whatever questions you might have. So with that being said, today we're going to be talking about the new Nikon Z9 update, but there's also an update that's an update 2.0, but there's also an update 1.4 that's also going to be available for the Z6 II and the Z7 II, which is kind of all coming out in about 4 days on the 20th. And it's going to bring a lot of capabilities, bringing Nikon up to like the 21st century, so to speak, when it comes to cameras and updates. So excited to see what they're doing with it, and with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and go say hello to the crew, see who's here in the chat. All right, we have Scott Rogers checking in, saying let's get this party started. Absolutely. And iCast Enterprises is here again. We've been all day together, whether it's on other people's live streams or like now on my own. Welcome. We got Robert in the house as well. Says Nikon is trying to be a player again, says Robert. Actually they are, and with this it really puts them up there. The one thing that's shooting Nikon in the foot right now is, can they get these cameras into the professionals' hands? So that's still up, as far as a question mark goes, especially because of the shortages and things that have been going on. Sly is also in the house. Sly is early. Welcome. This is an Easter weekend. I haven't even been thinking about it. There's a lot of personal things that I've been going through as well, but I'll probably touch on those in a little bit. Kevin is also here saying hello to all. Okay, we got Randall as well saying hello. And yep, and Kevin saying let's go ahead and hit that like button. So if you haven't, please make sure you hit that like button. It's highly appreciated. Okay, Randall is saying picked up the Nikon Z 24mm f1. Oh, it's not coming up there. Says picked up the Nikon Z 24mm f1.8 lens today. I will try it out tomorrow. Probably gonna get great results, because this is the whole thing. Sometimes these manufacturers, they'll actually create a 1.6 lens, but actually just stop it down through the aperture to actually get a sharper image. Because if they give it to you at 1.6, it could just start giving all types of chromatic aberration, too much light, you lose sharpness, maybe flares start becoming an issue. Yet you could get all of those properties, saying like a lens that's extremely fast, and you stop it down a couple and you'll get all the benefits of the speed, but with extra like sharpness and clarity. And I think that's what Nikon does with a lot of their lenses. That's just my thought, it's speculation, but that's why you see a lot more of the 1.8s coming out, but the results that people get with them are second to none, so there's nothing to worry about. Okay, you know what? Let me do something here, because I forgot to do this. This is a new installation of Ecamm that I use, and that's what I use to do all the graphics on everything. And I forgot to do the shutdown of the messages, because I could get a little bit like lengthy with my responses. Okay, so we're going into preferences. Let's see here. Ooh, it's been such a long time Let me see if I can find this quickly, because if not, then it's gonna have to wait, and I'm gonna have to do everything in my power. Wow. Okay, it's gonna have to wait. I did not see it right off the bat, but we'll figure that out next week. Well, I will continue. We have Tech Maniac in the house as well, saying hello and what's up. Tom Buck also in the house. Glad to have you here, sir. What's up? Okay. Says like button smashed. Always appreciated. And Tech Maniac says going to get the Laowa 65mm f2.8 ultra macro lens soon. What do you think? I actually like macro. Just to give you a little teaser, so to speak. This is what's on my tripod right now, which is like my macro set, so that you can lock in your settings manually and then be able to either go left to right on the same focal plane without having it move, you know, so that you can stack your images and get sort of like a panoramic type of macro shot, or zoom in and out, as you can see from the top to bottom, in increments to do the same, so that you can get the same, so that you could eliminate like the distortion that you would get when you would try to focus stack. So you will literally leave the lens in the correct focus and then just start doing it manually by moving the entire camera with lens, whether it be forward to back or side to side with this system. It's old school, yet it works so well. So I've been definitely messing around with macro lenses. I love macro photography, but I love photography, right? Or photography, like Tom says I need to trademark. Okay, so yep. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. So I'm losing my cursor here. Okay, so let's talk about this new camera. This is what's happening. The messages are staying up there and I need to remove them, so make a conscious effort for tonight. Okay, so this new Nikon Z9, it's very, very interesting, because on top of the last time that I mentioned it here on the live stream when it was being unveiled, it's a powerhouse camera, and I was looking at it in the side as a photographer. 120 frames, which basically allows you to capture video in still form. And because even though they're JPEGs, right, the fact that they are being captured almost like a global shutter would, as far as a film camera, you effectively have little high definition 120 frame, so you could even slow down or slow motion these image files and apply them to movies, as you know, throwing audio behind it, because that's the one thing with photography, it's pushing all of the power or all of the computing power directly into the photography side, and it's not processing any type of audio. With that being said, now this new update that is just been, you know, released to some of the higher or bigger channels, people who are more in tune or working directly with these companies. So, you know, only a limited amount of people were able to get this update before it's released, and the official release date is not that far behind. It's just a couple of days now, or actually 4 days, on the 20th. And what it's gonna allow is all of the video specs, all of the video sides of this camera to be completely unlocked, so to speak. It's going to give you the ability to record raw, so to speak, images directly to the CF Express cards through this update in 8K raw, using actually an 8.2K oversampled image from this sensor, and shrinking it down to an 8K image to give you the maximum. And as far as, you know, when it comes to the nerdy guys, like I've mentioned him before here on the channel, Gerald Undone. He was one of the ones who got this camera with the update, or got the update ahead of time, so to speak, because the camera's already out in the wild. But to have his hands on it firsthand, and he didn't experience any type of overheating at this extreme, like what would you say, extreme frame rate and file size. So 8K is so overkill for our needs right now, but it's starting to look like the push for 8K is going to be coming a lot sooner than maybe what we all expected. The reason why I bring it full circle with Apple products, when 4K became a viable thing and became kind of an everyday requirement when it came to video, was actually when the 4K was first being implemented full swing at 60 frames a second on the iPhone 7 series, I believe, in the 7 Plus series. And when you have a company like Apple bring it out to the masses, is where it starts being utilized every day, and you start getting 8K files being recorded everywhere, because the capability of doing so is in everyone's pocket. Or 4K, correct my speaking. But I was just kind of speaking ahead of myself, I guess, Freudian slip, because what's rumored to be coming out now is in the new iPhone 14 a 48 megapixel camera array on the back of these new iPhones, which will now allow a native high intensity, like frequency, I forget what's the abbreviation for the codec, right? The HIF codec. It's the H.265, which will allow 8K recording natively to iPhones. And if that were to come about, then that, in my eye, is going to exacerbate this 8K revolution and start bringing that a lot faster to the everyday, because the phones are going to have the capability to record it and most likely be able to show that image on the screens that are going to be available for those devices. So with that, going back to the camera, right now I think this update for the Nikon Z9 is going to be implemented not so much through the 8K but the 4K, and the unlocking of this capability is basically just scaling up your capabilities prior. So 720 was basically 1/4 of 1080, so it was, you basically got 4 times the resolution of 720 with 1080. The same thing happened from 1080 to 4K, because if you see 1080, bringing it down by numbers, that's 1080. So 1000 being 1K, and you quadruple that amount, or that pixels as far as pictures go within the frame, and now you've quadrupled the 1000, making 4K. And that's just the way that we're breaking it down, but the scaling is linear in that manner. And now the 8K is exactly that, 8 times resolutions, or 4 times the 4K, which is bonkers when you start thinking about how many pixels is being recorded, and that this new update is allowing a true 10-bit codec to be recorded. And hypothetically, I don't have the camera in my hand, but what's been reported is a 12-bit codec in that the Nikon log, so to speak, the N-log settings, that even though it's the technology is stated to say that it's actually 10-bit but performs like 12. We'll see exactly how it is, but I kind of believe them, because if it's one thing that I've always enjoyed when it came to using Nikon cameras, was their files, like the richness of colors and information within their image files or their NEF RAWs whenever I've used a Nikon camera, even to the point of using older cameras at even 8-bit color depth, still give me an amazing image. So when it comes to that, there's people who swear on Nikon specifically because of how the files are being able to be manipulated in post. So if you add that type of, je ne sais quoi to the video aspect, and you're talking about 4K, 8K, and all the way down to 4K, and 4K at 120 frames a second is bonkers. Because that's where I really think that this camera is just gonna start taking out a lot of the competition. Because if it's one thing, is that 4K 120 or the 4K 240, I believe, if I'm correct. You know what? Before I put my foot in my mouth, let me go ahead and check the article. Because if it's 4K 120, that's exactly what's on Sony. But no, I believe the scaling will allow for 4K 240 if it's possible. So let's see. Oh, I restarted my computer because I restarted it for the live stream. So I totally lost the article. Okay. I'm gonna digress because I need to see exactly. You know what? I have an iPhone. I'm not gonna worry about my computer. I'm just gonna pull up this information on my phone real quick. Okay, so I'm pulling it up on my phone here live. Okay, I think this is the Nikon website, so they don't give you the best. Come on. Okay, let me see real quick. Now, I will reiterate that everything is about as far as the bit depth and codecs is correct. I just want to make sure that I got the frame rates correct. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to really double check it, because from what I'm seeing right now, it literally is just stating the 4K 120. Let me see. Yeah, 4K 120. So, I kind of, this is happening live right now, and this is just me, I guess, kind of reading into it incorrectly as I was reading the article myself, because I just assumed that the 4K was at 240, and that's where I was like, 4K 240, they're gonna kill it. But if it is 4K 120, like, that should be the standard. So the AK60, incredible, right? Especially without the overheating and everything like that. But in my eye, if your camera has the capability as far as clocking and reading out, then the camera should have the ability to hit, hypothetically, that 4K 240. Because when you break down the mathematics to it, right? When you break down the mathematics, the amount of pixels that need to be rendered and processed are the same. So that's where I believe, that's where I guess my mind went to, as far as like just my prior research when it comes to how these devices actually work. So I'm just gonna leave it there, and we're gonna just shift gears, because I was gonna go into this whole thing about the 4K 240 and how prominent that would be and how game changing. But if that's something that's not even gonna be featured, then this conversation is kind of mute. So let me know if you guys have any questions about it, because now that just leaves my head scratching, honestly. I'm just like, because of the simple fact that without it, it's just, I guess the only real feature would be the 8K60. But in all sincerity, like, who is using that as an active workflow? And that's where I find that to be a little interesting. I would really love to get your input on this now, because that just leaves me like in shock. Now I'm just more like, what is Nikon doing? The one good thing, which I will bring back, to close it out as far as this conversation goes, is that at least they're doing updates via firmware. I mean, firmware updates via like over the air, or even if you have to connect it to your computer, the fact that you're able to do these updates, and that they're just providing them with more frequency, I guess, and that they're constantly doing it through that manner. It's just literally bringing them back to the 21st century, which big firmware updates like that didn't need the fact that they needed to be sent to like Nikon USA. Okay, so yeah, I see it says Nikon says 4K 120. So yeah, so then that does leave me scratching, because 4K 120 is something that you can find on basically all of the higher end flagship cameras. So that is nothing out of the norm. The 8K, of course, but then I don't see too many 8K workflows. I am gonna leave the rest of like my thoughts in reserve, so to speak, because they were based around the 240 conversation, and we'll see what actually comes out and what's available through the update when it actually comes out, because I think that would have been the bigger game changing update if they were to provide that, the 4K 240, because then that would just be ridiculous. I guess that's just my thoughts on it. Now, I would like to also get a little bit information on how I am sounding tonight. Tonight, I decided to bring back my old Samsung MTR 101 studio condenser microphone. I know it's coming out pretty good as far as the audio, the punchiness to it, but the reason why I bring this up is because I got an extremely great deal on this microphone. On top of the great deal, the microphone still sells for like $160, I believe, right now, if you wanted to get this microphone yourself. And even though I like the way that it sounds, I recently made my own microphone, like some of you know. This is said microphone. Now, while messing around with this microphone, I've also decided to pick up some extra capsules, because this microphone turned out to be so well. Like, it turned out to work so well. So I started messing around, and I grabbed some extra capsules as far as microphones go. So let's highlight there. There we go. And that's like the internals of the microphone. And I got this one ready, prepped to go, because I ended up, the story, picking up this good looking microphone for $6, but it sounds like absolute garbage. Now, this has been a really interesting observation, so I'm gonna take you along with it. Let me see, do I have my calipers? So I've been messing around with my caliper tool, and I've been measuring things to test things out to see what I'm going to build or how I was going to do it, because when this microphone ended up being $6 through Amazon, sounded so horrible, and it still sounds horrible. I decided, you know what, I'm probably gonna use this case to embody my other microphone and see how I'm gonna work that out, because at least it looks nice, and for $6 you got a body. But in that same case, I started looking around at different options, and in those options I came across this microphone, which I'm gonna pull out over here. Okay, so now I'm also just switched over to this new condenser microphone, and I wish I had a brand to tell you the name for you to even look up this microphone, because I've been very satisfied with how good this microphone sounds. And I paid $14.60 for this microphone. It came up as a microphone for you to basically gut out. For you to gut out the microphone, it says, let's say my gain level is low. Okay, let's see. That should be fine now. This microphone, right? I picked it up for $12, or no, was it $14.60? And to my surprise, I thought it was literally just going to be the microphone bare bones, because even the listings were saying this is good for you to use as a body, so on and so forth. And I was thinking, what I can do is I can take this microphone and this one and kind of like swap out the internals so that I can get the look and the styling, but get the internals that I could actually use to build my own microphone. But the main thing about this microphone that I started reading was they're saying that it had like an issue with the way that it was built, but it actually had a very big capsule, and that's why I started pulling out my calipers here and I started testing out, because that was one of the key features here. So right off the bat, I have another USB microphone, this Maono, and this Maono actually sounds pretty good. This sounds like trash, yet the capsule on this one is about 7 millimeters? 7 millimeters wide. This one is like 14 millimeters wide. So capsule wise, this one would have the better capsule, except this one has the much better sound. So then it started leading me to believe that this was completely due to the way that they built the software on the internals, because of the fact that it sounds like it has a noise gate and it's cutting off your words in the middle of your sentence. So it's just like and not letting you complete the word. So I went and I tested and I broke this down and I put on this capsule onto this body and tested it out to see if the problem with this microphone was literally the capsule or if it was the components on the inside. And sad to say, it's the components. So the way that they designed the internals and what's computing the sound here is what's killing the sound. So now, if I know that the Maono has even better internals and yet at the same time has a smaller capsule and can get better sounds from a smaller capsule, then what could I do if I start Frankensteining these, parts together? And that's when this one came across, and this one has the largest diaphragm capsule that at like 20 something millimeters, and it's even bigger than what you would find on my Samsung. And then when it came to the sound, it sounds very clear. So I would like to get your opinion on how this microphone sounds, because this microphone has impressed me quite a lot for something that, to me, ended up being free, for the simple reason that This Maono here, right, is okay, but the shock mount that I bought it with, I paid $12 just for the shock mount, just so that I can have a nice mount for this microphone. And all of the other microphones that were like this would actually mess with the knob on it, so I couldn't utilize it. So I paid $12 for this, and this, even though it's silver and looks metal, which I thought it was, is absolute plastic. But I haven't had any real problems with plastic shock mounts, so I was like, hey, it works, it's doing its job, it's fine. So then when I got this microphone so that I can basically just gut it out and have the frame so that I can build my own microphone, ended up coming with a shock mount that's metal, that's much higher quality for the same price roughly. I was like, that's kind of like getting the microphone for free. And then when I plugged in the microphone and I started like recording with it to see what it sounded like, I was pleasantly surprised. And I was like, I cannot believe that you can find a quality microphone like this with a quality capsule and internals that do not kill it like this microphone. Because even though I got it for $6 for a deal, they sell for $20. So this USB microphone for $20 is absolute like garbage compared to this. But at the end of the day, I like the cage and this top part, so probably going to be seeing this Frankenstein microphone. But at the end of the day, I'm really liking the way this sounds, even though the dynamics are probably better suited for my situation right here. But as of right now, for something voiceover or recording in one of my videos or anything like that, this sounds amazing. And for 14, like not even $15, I almost feel like bad breaking this down, right? But the only thing that I'm gonna do, and let me just mute this. I'm gonna change that grill. I like the look of this one better. And that's it. I think that's about all I'm gonna do, because this thing sounds great to me. So I would love to get your opinion on that as well. Let me go ahead and put the pop filter back on. Or actually, you know what? This one. Because take a look at this. Come on, cover the face. This bigger pop filter is the one that comes with the Maono. And this is the one that came with this. Now it's not bad, but that right there, sound. And then as my test, Peter Piper picked the podcast to populate his preferred podcatcher. It's handling pulsives awesome. And I'm just from what I'm hearing here, so sounds great. Once again, let me know what you guys think. Let me go ahead and get to the comments. Okay, so we got some people who snuck in. All right, we got Mr. Sarkeesian here saying what's up to everyone. How are you? Mr. Jones as well. And John is hanging out as well. How are you doing, sir? John, I literally like restarted my computer, so I have to like reopen the tab. But before my live stream, before I restarted my computer, I had your latest video up and I still haven't gotten to it. That's just a time thing. But I'll be watching it a little bit later, probably later tonight. How you doing, Charles? Welcome, welcome. Oh, and then another thing, like I just did this kind of like on the fly. This is my Cash App link right here. So if you want to support, you know, me and the channel, as always, I put that up there because buy me a coffee, even though it's like more convenient. And actually, I don't know about more convenient for me as far as centralizing everything goes. But once they were like unpartnered with PayPal, things became a little bit more difficult. So I was like, okay, it's also as well like just trying to make it as convenient as possible for everyone out there who wants to, support the channel. And right now it looks like something's going down, because as I was trying to just get some information out and start using the platform today, nothing has been working. So I don't know the future of Buy Me a Coffee. So if I do appreciate everyone who's ever supported me through that method, but I don't know if it's going to be around as well. So this is just another way for you guys to reach out if you desire to. But at least I just wanted to give you the method as well. That's why things are probably just going to be changing that way. Hey, we roll with the punches, right? Okay, so it says crystal clear. I guess this is about the microphone. So you sound crystal clear, but I had to turn up my volume to hear you. So I think you were a bit low. No, it could have been. Right now I'm not clipping. I'm in the yellow, right? But I do have to bring it down as far as the condensers go, because if I crank it up just a little bit more, then I'm going to be peaking all over the place. So, all right. It says when you're on off access, the sound quality shifts, not really optimal for a YouTuber that is physically in camera like you. All right. So hopefully. I was going to say something, right, and respond to that, but the funny thing is that I just dried up. So I was going to try to sneak it out, but nothing was coming out. But it's good to know. I thought that me just being Puerto Rican would have kind of been okay enough to move off axis just a little bit, but I'll work on it. But then at the same time, like I said, this is probably more for like a video recording or anything like that. I really do think that I'll be sticking to these, because I made 2 of them. This is, let me see, where's the other one? This is the original, and then I made a smaller size so that it can fit on my mic stand a bit better. And it almost feels like, a full-fledged microphone company making 2 sizes, like the full size and then the little baby one. So here we go. Let me see, where's my mouse? There we are. Okay. So Mr. Charles says that he agrees with Sly. I believe my microphone levels are okay now. It says the 1460 microphone sounds better and louder. Okay, much better, says everyone. Okay, good. The same as Sly says Happy Easter. Yes, Happy Easter for everyone who's celebrating. We are about 15 minutes away from actually being Easter. Says, what was the cost of the extra capsules? Well, actually, that's a good question. The first capsule that I bought when I first tested it out, when I was just saying hey, because the story was that the Shure SM57 is a legendary microphone. It's actually the presidential microphone. The subgenre of that microphone is that the people also love the legendary SM7B. The capsule on both of those microphones are the same one coming from Shure. The difference has to do with the transformers and the components on the inside before you get the sound to your console. It is rumored that the SM7B, when left on the flat profile and has no high pass filter applied to it, neutral, has no transformers connected, and you basically getting a connection of the capsule directly to your console with nothing in between. And that's what people love, how clear it sounds, but also tend to have to put preamp booster in it, like a cloud lifter or something, to get clean dB out of it, because it is such a low output capsule. That's why the transformer is also applied to the 57, so that you can get that extra presence boost out of the same capsule, put it in a small microphone, and ship it out the door. So the subgenre basically is that people have been taking the transformer out of the SM57 to try to get a similar sound as the SM7B, but at a quarter of the price. I mean that the SM7B is a $400 microphone, and you can on average find the SM57 for about $100, even new. The thing with me, like I mentioned, was I didn't want to buy a new 57 to take off the transformer. I was looking for one in the used market and couldn't find it through OfferUp or Facebook. So what I ended up doing was trying to see if I could find a deal for a used SM57 on eBay. And when I got on eBay, I was presented with the capsule by itself. So I bought the first one for about $12 solo. And I did my experiment. It was successful. The microphone sounds great. You can check my previous live streams, or maybe I'll even hook it up in a little bit, and so that you can see what it sounds like. And I was so happy with the results that I started, that's why you heard me mentioning about the conjuring up these Frankenstein microphones. And that's when I started just doing a little bit of digging, and I found 2 more capsules on Amazon, and they were shipped a lot faster because the first one I ordered was from China. They shipped a lot faster, and I got 2 of them for like around $13 with the shipping included. So the first one cost me $12, the second one cost me like $6.50 each, and this one being one of the 2 of the $6.50. Now this one is where I'm really gonna mess around, see if I create something like this out of those bodies, because I like the way that it sounds and it looks good as well. So it's just a fun little project that I've been doing here, and because the quality of the sound is so good, it's just been a lot of fun. It's just giving me a lot of ideas of how I could build, different containers for these capsules, which is basically all that it is to build the microphone. So the company Blue, right, who makes microphones, the Yeti, so on and so forth, they have also an array of XLR microphones. One of them is called the Baby Bottle, which then got me, thinking. I was like, should I put that capsule in a literal baby bottle and make a baby bottle microphone? I don't know. Just something that I thought of, and I was like, because that would be funny. That would be like an actual baby bottle microphone. Well, let me know what you guys think as well. So I was able to get both of those capsules pretty cheap, and the whole thing is that the more that you can mess with them, the more you could, or the more that you're willing to actually invest in them. Like, I know that if I go back and I want to buy like 25 or 30 of these capsules in bulk, they're gonna end up being even cheaper than that. Says the mic is amazing. It reminds me of the Stellar X2 Vintage. Nice. Hopefully that's because of the sound. Now, it's got good sound, especially like the proximity effect of this microphone is really nice, and it has to do everything with that big capsule. Now, that big capsule with this pop filter right here is an amazing little combination. Now, probably doesn't look the best, but as far as the sound goes, man, I can literally just be all up in this microphone and just be eating the microphone, and it sounds good. Says everyone will give you a different opinion because everyone hears and sounds differently. Absolutely. And also depends on how you're hearing it, whether it's through your TV, whether you're using AirPods or like full-on headphones. So it's always just a lot of fun. Says interesting. It is interesting. Sometimes it's all about getting the job done, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, this could really get the job done, Kevin. This is the message that was supposed to come up. This is getting the job done, and very well. Because this is the other thing. Like, I'm not there, but I'm getting close to, I guess, what would be considered an audiophile. Like, I'm not there technically and everything like that, but there, I know that I am like more anal about audio than most, right? And I guess that has to do with my own editing and things like that. But I also came to the realization that even some of like the content creators that I watch, my audio is so much better than theirs. Like, and it's not like that I'm trying to knock it. It's just me literally being like extremely anal over my own audio. Like, that's just what it is. Because okay, for example, there's this dude, I mentioned him here before, Davey504, Slappers. Dude's at like 10 million subscribers, right? Or even maybe like at 11 right now, because it just keeps going up, right? So he hit 10 million subscribers, and you go watch one of his most recent videos and he's got such a prominent hiss like throughout the whole audio that I'm like, I hear it, right? I hear it so clearly, and I'm like nobody cares except me, right? I'm the only one who cares, and yet I'm still watching his videos. Just because, hey, he's a trip. I find him extremely entertaining. He's got his own little niche there, and I'm part of his slap crew, so to speak, as well. So that's a very interesting. Is Charles says, if you really want to test your audio gear, including microphones, you should get a spectrum analyzer. Come on. There you go. I'll look into that, sir, because I've seen everything, but I just have fun with it. The way that I test it out, right, at the end of the day, is I just do a recording on Ecamm. I'll put the microphone, I'll make sure that the levels are okay, so I see that I'm like in the yellow. Audio's good, test it out, and then hit record. Because the other thing is, like, this also has a lot to do with the Mac Studio computer. So now, the Mac Studio computer is a beast. It's just awesome, just amazing. And the reason why is because now I actively am using it to process my audio through Audio Hijack. So any difference or like any equalization that I want to do, I can do it like inline digitally. So kind of like Keith Pelzer would be doing in previous live streams himself, as far as using his Apollo Twin and having like these vintage microphone sounds or plugins being able to be applied. That was all due to the hardware that he had, which is extremely expensive on his desk. Well, you know, extremely expensive for as far as a two XLR like input connection for an audio interface. I believe it runs like $2,000 when you can get a Focusrite for about $200. So the expensive part is relative. That's just how it is. But it's not the most inexpensive item that you can get, but it allowed you to do all the plugins because it was doing all of the processing power, almost like when people would buy a GPU externally to get that extra boost, even though they weren't using it as the actual display. At the end of the day, we'll see this thing is doing all of that processing power natively through Audio Hijack, and I've just used some plugins and some things like that to help the audio out, and mostly like to help boost it so that over here I'm not gain hungry, which was the biggest problem. And the process of addition through elimination has been just phenomenal, because I literally have my DBX 286S in a box over here, and I'm thinking that I might sell it because there's really no need for me to utilize that anymore. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I just have it off there to the side just in case. But the one thing that I'm learning, like, you know, it was mentioning before about the off access, right? Mic technique is so much more important than the actual microphone or than the gear. Mic technique. So even though it's picking up here, right, I'm speaking here. So if I were to say Peter Piper, my pulsives and that breath is hitting the camera, which doesn't have a microphone. Yet the sound waves that are coming from this location, which is like right next to the microphone, is in a good location, so that it's picking up all of the correct sounds without getting all of the pulsive wave of me pronunciating my P's. All right, so mic technique beats everything. He said that was the previous mic. I like your custom mic best. Thank you, thank you. That's Robert saying here. Discovering MrCameraJunkie is also a microphone genius is also awesome information. Well, I appreciate the compliment. I don't know about a genius, but I'm learning. I don't know what this means, Kevin. I'm just gonna maybe I should make a rubber chicken. You got me, bro. You got me. Maybe it's something I said. How you doing, Nano? How are you doing, sir? Hey, you know what? Let me know, Papo. Because I always reference you as Nano, and I know that not everyone. So if you prefer me to call you by your name, just let me know. You know, so that when I see you in chat, like I would just say Luis instead of Nano. Okay, so Lewis is also in the house. There's no such thing as late, but we are getting close to the hour. This is making macaroons for Easter. Nice. This is I'm sounding really crispy, not gonna lie. Thank you, thank you. But that's the whole thing. I'm letting the computer do all the processing, so I have as little noise as possible coming through the microphone, so that I'm coming in clear, and I literally have like a compressor boost built in through the audio hijack that's like boosting it up so that it sounds a lot better for Ecamm. And one thing, this is also just a little FYI, I've been using the Zoom PodTrack P4. Actually, you know, I haven't even changed angles tonight because I'm setting up my whole new setup today on the computer. But let me see. My C cam over here. Okay, good. All right, so right here. Actually, what about the overhead? See, overhead, is that working? Okay, boom. Let's see here. So this is my audio. What? Ooh. That even surprised me. I have magnets at the bottom of this so that I can stick to the metal, right? But the hold that those magnets gave me was surprising. I literally thought I was about to break it, but I digress. This is my Zoom PodTrack P4. This is what I'm using to process all of the audio, right? The cool thing is that right here, it has the USB. And actually, you know what? Let me pull it off so that I can get a better view here. It's a little bit off to the side, but right here, as you can see, there's two connections. It says DC 5 volt in and then USB. The problem was that even through the paperwork that Zoom gives you, it literally illustrates that you need to plug both of them in. Plug in the power and then have this just be the connection to your computer so that you can have it register as an audio interface and then start utilizing it with your mix here, right? Now, let's go back to the main shot. Oh, I lost my shots. Okay, so let's do it this way. We're gonna do the whole roundabout. There we go. Okay, we're back to square one. Okay, things are getting swirly here, but we continue. So now what I was doing was that I was having it plugged in to basically a dongle like this, a 5-volt little power brick, right? Like, you know, like an iPhone charger, so to speak, so that it can get power and then give it the connection to the computer. And I believe that that was causing a lot of like interference, causing like a or a sound coming in through the audio. To my surprise, you can choose either or, because what I ended up doing was, so that I could eliminate this plug here, I started putting batteries into the Zoom PodTrack so that I can run it off battery power and then just use the cable to get the cleanest sound into my computer. Well, what I needed to do, what happened was I needed to replace the rechargeable batteries on it, and I forgot to put them back in. And then I saw the PodTrack P4 off, and I decided to turn it on like I normally do, with thinking that it had the batteries in, and it turned on and it just connected. So even though like the information doesn't say so, you can choose either or when it comes to the connection here. So right now the PodTrack P4 does not have batteries. It is connected directly via USB-C to my computer, and it's running audio and power through that connection. So it really leaves my head scratching on this, because like, why have two ports? Why have two ports doing the same thing right next to each other? And that's where I'm gonna leave it. But the good news is that it eliminates a lot of the extra needs of the cables. So just one cable from the unit to my computer powers it up, is giving it all of the clean signal and doing everything that you hear here. I actually am also pleasantly surprised with this unit. You know, I have a couple of sound, you know, buttons on it. Let me see, like so, right? And then on top of that, I actually don't like using those buttons too much. They're small. I much prefer because it just sounds a lot better. So with that, let me see if you guys let me catch up back on the chat to see if you guys have any other questions here or your thoughts on this stuff. I had one in a Pringles can encapsulated in closed cell foam, and it was a beast. We're talking about a microphone in a Pringles can? Dude, I would love to see pictures of that. You see, that is like next level stuff. I thought of the baby bottles, but a Pringles can? Man. What, like, now, do you see, my mind just starts running with that. I'm like, what, like, did you make it like an interference tube, you know, like to try to isolate the sound, or did it cause echo if the capsule was inside? That's very interesting. Yep, Kevin says that those macaroons sound delicious, and they did sound delicious. All right. Kevin's got a question here saying, do you have multiple monitors connected to your studio? I'm having trouble waking my second monitor after the studio goes to sleep, and it wakes, but it's a blank black screen. I have not had an issue, and yes, I have everything on the studio. I have 3 active monitors. When you know, yeah, you can say it, because even though it's a 7-inch little HD monitor, which I'll disconnect real quick to show you. Focus. So as you can see, all of your comments and questions are there backwards, right? And this hangs directly, it hangs directly under my camera, which then I have this piece, my little teleprompter, connected to it so that I can see the comments and I don't have to, like, you know, this is Ecamm and then this is the comments. But now this screen acts like a middle screen in between my two standard monitors. So monitor here, which is a reflection, and it, because of the reflection, it looks bigger than the 7 inches that it is. And then the other monitor on this side as well, which is, here we go, oh, just there. Now right now, because of this softbox, I don't see that screen at all, so I just turn it off. This camera right here, sneaking in onto the right hand side. Actually, you know, your question's still up. Let me see here. So giving the breakdown, this is the softbox. As you can see, this is my Mac Studio. So this softbox giving me light here is actually blocking this screen here. Wow, it's further in the back. Let me see if we rotate this a little bit more. As you can see, this is my A6100 here. This is my secondary angle. This is my first one with the teleprompter and the monitor. So 3 active monitors. And during the day, I've actually been using them, you know, like 3 active monitors. So I haven't had any issues. They all work natively, no problems whatsoever. Let me get back that angle over here. And the crazy thing is that I still have like available IO, which is amazing. I have actively 5 terabytes on this little system right here. So I'm like, how to say, feliz como un lombriz. That's a saying that we said in Puerto Rico, you know, for many years. My mom taught me that. So that's just saying like snug in a bug, but like happiness wise, so to speak. It's weird, but anyway. That I am super happy. I have 1 terabyte of internal SSD. The Hagibis underneath has 2 terabytes, and then I got this SSK, another 2 terabytes there, so 5 terabytes in total. I have everything like right there. Super happy. Like incredible has been my editing workflow. So I am gonna, you know, make a video about like my experience, because to tell you the truth, I couldn't even say like my first week with the Mac Studio, because my first week with the Mac Studio, it was literally like revamping my entire setup here, and at the same time like setting up the Mac Studio, because I was so surprised how many things I had to push over as far as like plugins and programs and little knickknacks and little like all the different permissions and everything like that, because I wanted a clean installation to see exactly how it was going to work. I didn't want to use the Time Machine backup to try to save a little bit of time and then try to like hypothetically bring in a negative use case, because it wasn't built exactly for it. So I didn't want to have that issue, so I just started from scratch. And with that, it took me over a week to get to like 100% of using this computer alone. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I think Monday would be like a good week of me using this computer only. And wow, has it made a difference when it comes to editing. Just because there is no hesitation between like the mouse and what I'm inputting as far as the cuts. So whenever I would go to a spot on the audio where I knew it was an obvious gap, I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of it because it's silence. I go to it and I click cut, and you know, it's doing all the processing. And it may seem crazy to some people, but those little micro fractions of a second that it's like just processing, it doesn't have that anymore. So now it's just like cut, and it's just like doing it there, and it's ready to go. So for example, one of the biggest pet peeves as a Final Cut Pro editor is the fact that the audio waveforms do not stick around for anything. So when you edit in a video, you start just editing by the audio first. So whenever you see these gaps of dead air, you know, it's not going to be usable footage. So just get rid of that first. In the process of doing that, you start seeing, how could I explain this? Because, well, the bigger the files get, right? Like you start utilizing your editing through that, you start losing time with all the monotonous little like edits in between, and the waveform on Final Cut Pro just won't stick around. So you could actually be editing the video, right, as it's playing, and you could be adding markers, right, and literally cutting as the file is moving along to try to progress time. And as it's doing that, or as you're listening to something, when you scroll ahead in the timeline, anything that was outside of your original frame of reference, you will not see the waveforms. So it's not like I could jump ahead in the timeline to look for the next gap that I know is like obvious that I have to remove in the timeline. And because I can't see it, I literally would have to press stop on the playing timeline and then give it seconds, right? And this is talking about my Mac Mini. Give it a second or two to allow it to stop what it was doing as far as the playhead goes, and then recognize that it needs to bring up all the audio waveforms back up, and it would bring all the audio waveforms back up, and then you would see where will be the next gap, allowing you to move ahead in the timeline and cut out the next chunk of silence. That's a pain in the butt for the main reason that you can't see ahead in the timeline. And that's like my biggest pet peeve with Final Cut Pro. Like, the audio waveforms suck. Everything else, I absolutely love the program, but that is a flaw, right? We're hoping this new update came out, so I don't think I mentioned that as well for Final Cut Pro users. 10.6.2 was released, so if you don't have it, update to it. They didn't fix the audio waveforms with the update, but with my new computer, I mention all of this to say that it is so fast that as soon as I'm doing something on this same timeline, same program, as soon as I press pause, all the waveforms are there. So even though the program is still like not working the best, so to speak, and even if you had like waveforms, if you were to scroll and those waveforms leave your frame of view and you come back to it, they would be gone as well. So it's a funny game that you have to play with the audio waveforms, because if you start scrolling back and forth, you start shrinking the window of visible waveforms that you have within the program. But before, where I had to press pause and give it a second or two to build all of those things up, now as soon as I press this, like the play or the pause, all the audio waveforms pop up instantly. So it's almost like they're there, they're just not showing them to you. So I really hope that they can implement a small little update that will allow the audio waveforms to be shown at all times. Like, let that be something that it updates while it's playing. But for right now, this computer is so fast that I'm able to literally just press pause and then right behind it press play, so that for me it feels like I haven't even paused the timeline, you know. It's just like a small little hiccup, and that small little hiccup of me just praying pause and play like right back on top of each other is enough time for the audio waveforms to show up all over again, and giving me the ability to jump forward in the timeline to make the next cut, make the next thing, and then just kind of like press play pause again, and I'm able to blow by the audio waveforms, even though I'm using a bypass to the one flaw that Final Cut Pro does have. So hopefully that wasn't too, because I can just nerd out sometimes when it comes to all this stuff. But guys, it's 12:15. This is amazing. Episode number 72 in the books. I want to thank you, as always, for hanging out here and spending your time with me, because it just means the most. Let me go ahead and see. It says a rubber chicken to hold your capsule, a rubber chicken mic. Okay, I got it. It says the mouse goes over there but can't unplug to the HDMI device monitor, and it get it to work again. Okay, so this is what he was saying. The mouse goes over there, but I can't see anything. I have to unplug and replug the HDMI and the monitor to get it to work again. Then honestly, Kevin, I think that would have to do more. Actually, you know what? First rule of thumb, replace the cable. Because if the cable is not giving that good signal to let it know that it needs to wake up, it could be all that is there. Second, if it's not the cable, then you're probably looking more at the monitor itself, or the HDMI port on the monitor that's not waking through the signal that you're getting. And maybe replacing the monitor, if the cable doesn't fix your issue, would probably be the next step towards fixing the wake to sleep, because I really don't think it has anything to do with the computer itself, as far as my experience goes, and I've been using it in all manners. So just to clarify, when I say all manners, this monitor here is connected via HDMI directly to the HDMI port built into the Mac Studio, the 2.0. This monitor here, the one with my teleprompter, is connected to this, because I have one on the Mac Mini, which I have underneath here. Dad duties, gotta get to them. Okay, so this is the QGM right here, right? So Thunderbolt to an adapter that gives you an HDMI connection. So this also has a split for SD, micro SD 3.0, and we flip it to the other side, and you got two more USB A 3.0s with a USB-C power pass-through. So I bought another one of these, and I connected that. So I have one native, I have one with ports that's connected to this HDMI, which giving me the display on the little small HD monitor. And then I have a HDMI to Thunderbolt, so that it's a full clean signal by itself with no extra adapters to the other monitor here as well. So I have it connected Thunderbolt solo, Thunderbolt with multi-tap, and a straight HDMI, one of each monitor on my setup. So I haven't had an issue with any way that I've connected it via HDMI in my setup that way. But let me see. Once again, I'm just going to scroll through these real quick. Charles says, I miss the 4-hour live streams. Do you? You know who doesn't miss those? Anyone watching the replays. Like, I still got to try to keep it down for Dragic and all my peoples who watch the replay, my replay squad. So, yeah. So Sly says, Kevin, I had the same problem with my Mac Mini, I used to plug into the second monitor into the Hagibis. It works pretty good, just a few seconds. Oh, I wonder how the Hagibis is working for you. Tony is also here saying, "Que lo que, Luis?" I'm doing good, sir. How are you? This is Tony. Hope you are feeling well. This is Sly Reader. Interestingly enough, I never had issues with my M1 Mac Mini, says Kevin. Just now the studio. Okay, so everyone's saying hello. Lewis is asking me what configuration did I get. I got the base model, so entry level $1,900 or $2,000 Mac Studio, and then I did the upgrades that I knew were gonna be vital for me, which was the SSD to 1 terabyte, and I jumped it from the 32 gigabytes to the 64 gigabytes, and I was so happy that I did because I keep checking my memory, and on my last Final Cut Pro edit, I got this little machine up to, like, you know, with everything that I'm doing. So I'm saying my Final Cut Pro edit with my windows opened up on YouTube, watching or listening to a podcast, you know, like downloading music that I'm using for my edit, looking up, you know, what would, like, stock videos, you know, like just doing the research for the video, everything going, and I got this little sucker up to like 43, right? 43 gigabytes of RAM being utilized at one time with Final Cut Pro working, and I was like, I'm so glad that I got the 64, because I was able to, you know, through my workflow, exceed the 32 gigabyte threshold, which would have been like, do I really need the 64? And not that I need it, right? It would compress some of the memory and anything, but this thing didn't even break a sweat. It's, you know, the fact that it doesn't have to utilize the SSD drive to do that memory swap because it's running out of, you know, unified memory space, has never been touched at all. So it's never used like 1 byte of swap memory or had to compress the RAM because it's plenty. So it's just like, go all at it, and I was doing my best at it, and I was just very happy. That's what I'm saying with the performance throughout the edits, no slowdowns, no hiccups whatsoever, you know, besides the programs themselves, but everything's working good. This is Kevin says, I took a Thunderbolt 3 cable between the studio and the M1 to use Migration Assistant. Oh, okay. See, I didn't use the Migration Assistant. I can also tell you why I didn't do it, because my Mac Mini, when I got it, I migrated the information from my previous Mac. But my previous Mac, right, all the information on it was from my previous business. So everything, including the user, was like Mr. Fix-It, not MrCameraJunkie. And it may sound like a little bit OCD or whatever, but I wanted my Mac Studio that was all about MrCameraJunkie to be labeled MrCameraJunkie. So this is my MCJ machine, and I had to start it new because if I would have done the transition, it would have brought back all of those usernames that were literally linked to all of that older information. So that's basically why. Says Lewis, you're always filming in 4K. Yes, I try to, especially doing the recording. So, and now this thing's recording natively 4K to the, this thing is just doing everything and then some. Says, so it's a big jump over the M1 Mac Mini. Yeah, unless you understand that you're doing that, because this is the whole thing. If it was that I was only doing YouTube videos, and I'm being very clear, if I was only doing 10 to 15 minute like files, I probably wouldn't have gotten this computer. Probably wouldn't even have been necessary. But I was seeing a big slowdown in my performance while I was editing, and this was like how long it would take my cursor to get to my next cut to start removing files or, you know, adjusting. And when you're trying to get the audio just right and trying to make that jump cut, and you're leveling that line, if your computer is not responding and is doing these like weird jumps, it's gonna drive you crazy. And that's what I was experiencing more because I was editing files that were 2.5 hours long. And when I'm getting into a 2.5 hour edit, so to speak, where I'm chopping things down, and this computer has to read all the information for 2 hours and see where is the next cut that needs to get done, my Mini was really like struggling. It was huffing and puffing. And that's why I knew that I needed this extra jump. I was already in the market to get the Pro with the MacBook Pro laptop, but I was going to be using it with, like, everyone's like, oh, it's got such a gorgeous screen. I was like, I wasn't going to be using it because I wasn't going to be making my edits on a screen this big when I have one this big in front of me. And it's just like being real with me. And I was like, I didn't want to buy, like, I would have, if that was my best option, I would have bought a laptop and would have clammed it up and used it as a desktop replacement. But as soon as this one came out, I was like, I can invest more money into the processing, which is what I want, instead of how good the image looks, because this isn't a constant consumption machine. It's more of a constant content creation machine. So instead of consuming it, right, like I want it to look pretty because I want my videos to look great, I didn't buy it to watch videos. I made it to create videos. So for example, my screen right here is not a 4K screen. Shocker, right? It's 120 hertz, but it's 1080 because it's a 10-year-old television. Now, it was top of the line 10 years ago, and it's still so good that it works till today. But I get a crystal clear image because of the higher refresh rate, and it feels newer than other televisions, not because it's 4K, but because of the higher refresh rate. And because of that, it still holds its own till today for me, but I'm still producing 4K, even though my actual monitor cannot display 4K. So let that sink in, right? Like, I got the tools that were best for me to create the content that I wanted to push out. So everyone out there that has the 4K TV and all the resolution and they pop it on there, they're going to get the best feed from MrCameraJunkie. But I don't necessarily needed the 4K feed to see myself to be able to produce it. So I made sure that just like the monitor on the MacBook Pro could produce a good image for the consumption side, I was going to be using it for the construction side, or the making of it. And that's where I think that the Mac Studio was perfect for me compared to all the other machines that were available on the market. Oh, I really need to get to this where it just starts closing these by themselves. It says that constant stop and go drives me insane. Yeah, because that's what all the workflow is about. But this thing has been a dream to work with. Oh, Carlos, what's up, man? Yes, it was really good connecting with you, sir. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Okay, but yes, I'm just gonna have to call it a night. Let me see, we're getting to the end. It says long form edit challenge on Final Cut Pro. So many. This is I appreciate all the compliments, guys, but I have to get to dad duties right here. Aiden, I have to do so. Instead of saying be right back or anything and taking all the time, I need to attend to him. So as always, guys, I want to thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate you all. I'm just gonna double check because, man, I can barely see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that there really wasn't any other questions. I answered Kevin's and as many as I could, get in there. Guys, guess what? We're going to be doing episode 73. 73 next week. What time? 11 p.m. because it doesn't change. Same place, same time, same location. You're going to find me here, MrCameraJunkie, hanging out with the crew next Saturday. Can't wait to see all of your smiling faces here next week. And with that, as always, thank you for spending your time, your most precious commodity, here with me and Prince Aiden. Have a great night, and I will see you next week. And we're going to roll through